How to find out if they're cheating on you. If they're lying to you, the truth is already showing. It's slipping out in the smallest ways. You just need to train your eyes and ears to catch it. You don't uncover lies by cornering someone with accusations. You catch them by observing, by stepping back, by letting them reveal themselves without you ever having to push. Cheating doesn't come to you with a neon sign. It hides in subtle shifts, in the way they speak, the timing of their actions, the energy they bring into a room. But here's the thing. When someone changes the truth, they also have to change their behavior to keep that truth hidden. That's where most people give themselves away. Start by watching the rhythm of their life. We are creatures of habit, and our routines are like fingerprints, unique and consistent. When someone suddenly begins altering that rhythm, you need to take note. Maybe they're staying out later. Maybe they've developed a new project or a new interest that strangely never includes you. This is where you become an investigator in your own life. Quiet, alert, mapping when these changes began and what else started shifting around that time. Next, listen for the cracks in their stories. Truth stays steady. Lies require energy, and when people are juggling more than one version of a story, the details eventually stop matching. You don't need to grill them. You just ask small, casual questions. Later, you ask again from a different angle. If the details move around, if timelines blur, if they add or subtract parts of the story without reason, you've spotted a fracture in the narrative. Then, there's the digital trail. When trust is intact, a phone is just a phone. But when trust is broken, that phone becomes a fortress. Sudden password changes, constant screen flipping, stepping out of the room to answer calls. These are signs of secrecy. And remember, there's a difference between privacy and secrecy. Privacy is healthy. Secrecy is designed to keep you out. Learn to tell which one you're dealing with. Emotional distance is another tell. Betrayal isn't just physical. It's mental and emotional. You'll feel it when they start pulling back. The conversations get shorter. Eye contact fades. Physical closeness starts to feel transactional. They may still be in the room, but the connection feels like it's shrinking. This kind of withdrawal often happens before the physical line is ever crossed. Sometimes, though, instead of pulling away, they push in, hard. They buy you gifts, they shower you with affection, they seem overly attentive. It feels good, but you need to ask yourself, why now? Why suddenly? Overcompensation is one of guilt's favorite disguises, and then there's deflection. Instead of answering a question, they redirect it. They make a joke, change the topic, or even turn suspicion back on you. That's a defense mechanism, a way to shift the spotlight. Pay attention not just to what they say, but to what they avoid saying. Finally, listen to yourself. That quiet unease you feel isn't random. It's your instincts processing information before your conscious mind catches up. It's not about accusing without proof. It's about honoring that signal and allowing it to guide your observations. If someone is lying to you, the truth is already bleeding through. You just need to know where to look. You don't uncover dishonesty by chasing it with questions. You uncover it by stepping back, by watching, by letting their own behavior become the evidence. When someone is hiding something as big as an affair, they don't just keep the truth in their words. They have to change the way they live to protect it. And the human mind is not perfect. It can't hold up an act forever. That's where the truth starts to seep out. One of the first things you watch for is a shift in their normal patterns. People are naturally consistent. We have routines, habits, small rituals that we repeat without thinking. When a person suddenly alters those, it's rarely without a reason. Maybe they've developed a new commitment that takes them out of the house more often, or their work schedule changes in ways that don't quite line up. Maybe they've suddenly taken an interest in looking different, dressing sharper, or investing in their appearance, but not in a way that seems to involve you. It's not about jumping to conclusions. It's about noting when the rhythm you've known starts to beat differently and asking yourself what else shifted at the same time. Then you look for cracks in the stories they tell. Truth is steady. It stays the same because it doesn't have to be remembered. It's real. But lies are work. Lies require maintenance. And the more moving parts a lie has, the harder it is to keep them all in sync. You don't have to interrogate. Just have small, casual conversations and later revisit the same topic from a different angle. See if their details match. See if timelines drift, if they add or remove elements without reason. Inconsistencies are one of the clearest signs that someone is bending reality. Watch the way they treat their devices. When trust is intact, a phone is just another object in the room. When trust is broken, it becomes something they guard. They start keeping it face down, slipping it into their pocket the second a notification pops up, walking out of the room to take calls, or changing passwords without explanation. There's a difference between healthy privacy and intentional secrecy. Privacy respects boundaries. Secrecy builds walls to keep you out. The shift between those two is important. You'll also notice it in their presence, or rather, in their absence. Sometimes, even when someone is sitting right next to you, you feel them pulling away. The conversations get shorter, the attention fades, the physical closeness feels mechanical rather than connected. This emotional distance is often one of the earliest signs, and it tends to appear before the physical betrayal does. But distance isn't the only mask. Sometimes guilt tries to hide by doing the opposite, by smothering you in affection, by giving unexpected gifts, by suddenly becoming overly attentive. And while that may feel good in the moment, you have to ask yourself, is this genuine love, or is it an attempt to quiet their own conscience? Another thing to watch for is how they handle questions. A truthful person can address what you ask directly, but someone who's hiding something often deflects. They joke, they change the subject, or they flip the suspicion back onto you. That's not just avoidance. It's a tactic, and sometimes the most telling thing isn't what they say at all, but what they won't say. And above all, pay attention to yourself. Your instincts are not paranoia. They're your subconscious collecting and processing information you haven't consciously pieced together yet. That uneasy feeling in your gut is worth listening to. It doesn't mean you act recklessly or accuse without proof. It means you honor that inner signal and allow it to guide how you watch, listen, and gather the truth. If someone is being unfaithful, the truth is already slipping through the cracks. It's not about forcing a confession or demanding answers. It's about paying attention to the little fractures that appear when a lie is being carried. People think lying is just about changing words, but it's far more than that. A lie is a performance, and performances take energy. The truth flows easily because it's real. It doesn't have to be rehearsed. A lie, on the other hand, is like juggling. Every detail is another ball in the air, and sooner or later, something will drop. This is why you don't need to corner someone to find out what's real. You simply allow them the space to speak, and then you listen, not just to what they say, but how they say it, and whether it matches what they've said before. When you're trying to uncover the truth, your best tool is your memory. Most people will hear something, feel uneasy about it, and let it go because they don't want to seem suspicious. But you can't afford to dismiss those moments. If they tell you they were in one place on a particular day, file that information away. Later, when the topic comes up again, they may unknowingly change a detail, a time, a location, a person who was there. And the more times they have to recall the same event, the harder it is to keep the invented version consistent. This is why people who tell the truth can recount the same story over and over with almost identical details, while liars tend to adjust the narrative every time you hear it. It's important to approach this without showing your hand. The moment someone senses you're testing them, they'll become more careful, and the inconsistencies will be harder to spot. Keep the conversation casual, even light, as if you're just chatting. Ask about the same event from different angles: what they ate, who they saw, how they got there. It may seem harmless, but it forces them to recall specific details. When a story is fabricated, it wasn't lived, it was imagined. And the human mind struggles to recreate imagined moments with perfect consistency over time. You'll also notice that people who are hiding something often over-explain. They add unnecessary details as if layering the story will make it more believable. This is another subtle trap. They believe more words mean more credibility, but it actually creates more opportunities for contradictions. Listen carefully to the extra information they offer. Ask yourself, Does this make sense, or is it filler meant to distract? And remember, inconsistencies aren't just in the facts, they're in the delivery. Maybe the tone changes when they recall the story. Maybe they hesitate in parts that should be effortless to remember. Maybe they rush through key moments and linger on irrelevant details. All of these shifts are data points. When you collect them over time, they start to paint a picture. And often, that picture is very different from the one they want you to see. When trust is intact, technology is just part of life. A phone is a tool, a laptop is for work, a tablet is for convenience. They exist in the open. They're used without fear of being seen, without the need to hide. But when someone is concealing something, those devices become gates, locked tight and guarded at all costs. A phone is no longer left on the kitchen counter. It's glued to their side. They start taking it into the bathroom, into the shower, even into another room, just to answer a message. The way they interact with their devices shifts, and if you've been paying attention, you'll feel that shift instantly. Sudden password changes are another red flag. Maybe they've always had a passcode, but it's one you've known for years, and suddenly, it's different. Maybe they add a second layer of security, or start using features like hidden albums or disappearing messages. These are not casual changes. They're deliberate actions designed to keep you out. And it's not that healthy relationships require you to have total access to each other's devices. That's not what this is about. It's about recognizing the difference between privacy and secrecy. Privacy is about maintaining personal space in a relationship, and it's mutual. Secrecy, on the other hand, is about keeping certain truths from ever seeing the light of day. The shift from one to the other is something you can feel. It's in the tension, in the way they close the laptop the moment you walk into the room, or angle the phone screen away from your eyes. And it's not just about physical behavior, it's about patterns. Do they suddenly respond to messages at odd hours, but when you're around, they put the phone away quickly? Do they silence notifications when you're nearby, or keep their device on Do Not Disturb more than they ever used to? Do they seem to get more calls that they have to take somewhere else? All of this adds up. You're not looking at one single moment as proof. You're looking at the overall picture those moments create when they're placed side by side. Another thing to notice is how their emotional energy changes around technology. When someone has nothing to hide, they'll pick up their phone in front of you, scroll, laugh, share what they're looking at. There's no tension, no careful handling. But when secrecy sets in, you'll notice guarded movements, checking messages at angles, locking the screen the second you glance their way, or even becoming irritated if you casually ask who they're talking to. That irritation isn't about your question. It's about their fear of what you might uncover if you look too closely. Devices don't just hold communication, they hold timelines, photos, receipts, and digital footprints that tell a story. When someone's trying to erase or block that story from you, their behavior around those devices will shift. You don't have to go digging through their phone to notice it. You just have to pay attention to the way they've started protecting it. The change will be there, even if they think they're hiding it well. Emotional distance is one of the most telling shifts you can ever experience in a relationship. It's not something that happens overnight. It's a slow pulling away, a gradual thinning of connection that you start to feel before you can even fully explain it. You notice it in the way they speak to you, in the pauses that feel heavier than they used to, in the way they no longer look at you the same way when you're talking. It's a subtle but powerful change, and if you pay attention, you'll sense it long before any concrete proof appears. It starts with the little things. Conversations become shorter, not because they're in a hurry, but because they no longer engage the same way. They're physically present, but mentally somewhere else. The topics you used to share with ease now seem to hit a wall, and their responses feel like they're just going through the motions. Even moments that should be naturally intimate, like eating together, watching a movie, or sitting close, start to feel like there's a quiet distance between you. That invisible gap is telling you something. When someone is emotionally involved elsewhere, their investment in your connection begins to fade. You might find that they no longer ask you about your day or remember important details of your life. They may seem distracted, as though their mind is pulled toward something or someone else. and it's not always obvious through words. Sometimes it's in the absence of effort, in the way they no longer initiate affection or take interest in shared plans. It's in the silence where there used to be laughter. Physical closeness can change too. Intimacy might become less frequent, or when it happens, it feels different. Less warm, less connected, more mechanical. You can feel when touch is given out of obligation rather than desire. And sometimes, it's not the absence of touch that tells you the truth, but the lack of genuine emotion behind it. They're there, but they're not there. What's important to understand is that emotional withdrawal doesn't always mean they've already acted physically. In many cases, the emotional shift comes first. They start investing their energy, their attention, and their emotional availability into someone else long before any physical line is crossed. That's why recognizing this stage matters so much, because it's the foundation for what may follow. You'll also notice a change in how they react to your needs. If they were once supportive, they may now seem impatient or dismissive. If they used to offer comfort, now they offer minimal responses, as though they're just fulfilling a role instead of truly caring. It's not that they've suddenly forgotten how to be compassionate. It's that their emotional focus is no longer centered on you. The human connection in a healthy relationship is an unspoken flow of energy. When that flow changes direction, you feel it in your gut. You can sense that the person you once knew is slowly stepping back, and no matter how much they try to mask it with routine or excuses, that shift in energy is almost impossible to fake. Overcompensation is one of the most underestimated signs that something isn't right. When guilt starts to weigh on a person, it doesn't always make them pull away. Sometimes it pushes them to do the opposite. They start showing more affection than usual, buying gifts out of nowhere, acting extra attentive in ways that feel sudden and out of character. And at first, it can be disarming. You might even think, wow, they're finally being the partner I always wanted them to be. But when you look closely, you'll realize the change isn't organic, it's reactive. It's not a slow build born out of genuine love. It's a sudden spike driven by the need to quiet their own conscience and throw you off the scent. You see, when people are hiding something, they often fear being caught, and that fear makes them want to control your perception. If they can make you feel secure, shower you with attention, overwhelm you with positive gestures, then maybe you won't suspect anything. This is where you need to ask yourself, why now? Why this sudden surge of romance, generosity, or attentiveness? In a healthy relationship, love grows steadily, and while surprises are natural, they fit within the rhythm you've already built together. But when the gestures feel rushed, almost exaggerated, they can be an attempt to cover something up. The key to spotting overcompensation is not just noticing the new behavior, it's comparing it to the baseline. How have they historically expressed affection? How often have they gone out of their way for you in the past? And what were the reasons? If their actions now feel inconsistent with their normal patterns, you have to pay attention. For example, if gift-giving was never their thing and suddenly they're buying you expensive items without any particular occasion, it's worth asking why. If they've been emotionally distant for months and out of nowhere they're texting you all day, leaving notes, and making big romantic gestures, it's not necessarily because they've had a sudden awakening. It might be because they're trying to compensate for something they know they've done wrong. Another layer to this is timing. Overcompensation often appears right after periods of unexplained absence, odd behavior, or tension in the relationship. If they've been short with you for days, then suddenly show up with flowers and a big smile. Don't just enjoy the gesture. Think about what it might be replacing. Sometimes the grand acts of love are strategically placed to erase or distract from recent actions they don't want you thinking about. Pay attention to the way they give, not just what they give. Is there a rush in their gestures, like they're trying to reset the relationship quickly? Do they seem overly eager for you to react positively? Are they fishing for reassurance, wanting to hear how much you appreciate them? That's another tell. When people act out of guilt, they often crave immediate validation to ease their own discomfort. And here's the hardest part. Overcompensation feels good. It feels like love, and part of you will want to believe it's pure. That's why it's so effective as a cover. It disarms your suspicion and makes you second-guess the unease you've been feeling. But you have to be strong enough to step back and look at the bigger picture. Is this sudden generosity consistent with their everyday character, or is it a performance designed to keep you from looking deeper? Real love doesn't need to erase suspicion. It doesn't need to prove itself in a hurry. But guilt needs you to believe everything is fine before you start asking the questions that might reveal the truth. Deflection is one of the most subtle yet powerful tactics people use when they feel the truth creeping too close. It's the art of redirecting the conversation away from dangerous territory without outright refusing to answer. And the thing about deflection is, it often slips right past you in the moment because it's dressed up as humor, frustration, or even concern. You ask a question, maybe something small, and instead of giving you a direct response, they change the subject. They might joke about it, they might answer with a question of their own, or they might suddenly turn the spotlight onto you. Why are you asking me that? Do you not trust me? You're being paranoid. These aren't answers. They're diversions. What you need to understand is that deflection isn't just about avoiding the question, it's about shifting the emotional balance. They're not only steering the conversation away from what makes them uncomfortable, they're also trying to make you feel uncomfortable for even bringing it up. That discomfort can make you back down, which is exactly the point. It's a protective reflex. When a person feels cornered, they'll look for the quickest escape route, and in conversation, that means steering you somewhere else. Anywhere else, so you drop the thread. Sometimes the deflection comes disguised as irritation or anger. They might act as if your question is so outrageous, it doesn't deserve an answer. They might raise their voice, sigh heavily, or make you feel guilty for even suspecting them. This reaction works because most people hate conflict, and when faced with an aggressive or dismissive tone, they let the subject go. And that's the danger. You're not getting the truth, you're getting a performance designed to protect it. Other times, deflection is softer, almost charming. They might laugh it off, tease you, or distract you with a compliment. It can be as simple as, "You're so cute when you're jealous," or, "Oh, come on, let's not fight, let's go out and have fun." In those moments, it feels harmless. But that's how it slips under the radar, because you walk away thinking the question wasn't that important, when in reality, it struck close to something they didn't want to reveal. To spot deflection, you have to pay attention to the patterns. If every time you approach certain topics, specific names, times, events, they respond by changing the subject or turning it back on you, that's not coincidence. People who have nothing to hide may feel momentarily surprised or even defensive, but they'll answer and move on. People who are hiding something will avoid direct answers repeatedly, in subtle and not so subtle ways. And here's the thing, deflection is not always loud or dramatic. It can be a quick subject change that feels natural in the moment. They might answer part of your question, but conveniently leave out the part that matters most, then quickly steer you to another topic. They might throw in a story, a complaint, or a joke, so you're mentally pulled in another direction. You only notice it when you replay the conversation later and realize your question was never actually answered. The key is to stay calm and not show that you've noticed the redirection. Keep mental notes. If you react emotionally every time they deflect, you give them more incentive to use it against you. But if you quietly track how often it happens and in what situations, you start building a clearer picture. The more you notice when and how they dodge certain truths, the more you'll see the lines between what they're willing to share and what they're desperate to keep hidden. Trusting your instincts is not about acting on impulse. It's about learning to respect that quiet signal inside you that something is off. Your instincts are not random. They're the result of your subconscious collecting tiny pieces of information, changes in tone, shifts in body language, gaps in stories, patterns that don't quite add up, and processing them faster than your conscious mind can keep up. By the time you feel that uneasy knot in your stomach or that sudden heaviness in your chest, your mind has already detected more than you've consciously noticed. The problem is, most people push that feeling away because they don't want to believe it, or they're afraid of what following it might confirm. That gut feeling isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a subtle discomfort in moments where there used to be ease. You might not be able to point to a single thing, but you know the energy has shifted. Maybe you can't name the reason yet, but you can feel the truth pressing in. It's important to understand that this isn't about paranoia or being suspicious without cause. It's about acknowledging that your mind and body are working together to protect you. That quiet voice inside you is often your first line of defense. When you feel it, don't ignore it and don't rush to confront. That feeling is your signal to start paying closer attention. Instead of letting it spiral into fear or anxiety, channel it into observation. Watch the way they respond to questions. Note any changes in routines, in the level of openness they once had with you. Keep track of the details they give you and see if they stay consistent over time. This is where instincts meet evidence, where what you feel starts to connect with what you see. The danger in ignoring your instincts is that it creates a gap between what you know and what you admit to yourself. That gap is where self-doubt grows. You start convincing yourself that you're imagining things, that maybe you're being overly sensitive, and before you know it, you're gaslighting yourself into accepting behavior you would have seen clearly in someone else's relationship. You have to remember, your instincts are not proof, but they are a prompt. They're telling you to look deeper, to be more aware, to slow down and examine what's really happening around you. And there's another layer to this. People who are hiding something often rely on you ignoring your instincts. They might reassure you just enough to make you second-guess yourself. They might accuse you of overthinking or tell you you're reading too much into things. They may even try to make you feel guilty for feeling uneasy. That's why it's essential to stand firm in your own perception. You don't have to fight. You don't have to explain. You simply have to observe and collect what you need to know. Your instincts are not there to create drama. They're there to protect your dignity. They don't push you to act recklessly. They prepare you to act wisely. When you trust them, you shift from reacting out of emotion to responding with clarity. You stop chasing answers and start allowing the truth to reveal itself in time. And the truth always has a way of showing up, especially when you're patient enough and steady enough to see it clearly when it does. If they're cheating, the truth will always find its way out. Lies don't last forever. The longer they try to hide, the more fragile their story becomes. It's like a thin thread stretched too tightly. It starts to fray, then snap. What's important is that you don't become the one unraveling that thread in desperation. Your role is not to chase, not to accuse with wild emotion, but to stand steady, sharp, and clear-headed while the truth unfolds on its own timeline. This is how you protect your dignity and your peace of mind. When you begin to sense something's off, your first instinct might be to confront immediately, to demand answers, to force a confession. But that's a dangerous path. Emotional reactions can cloud judgment and make the situation worse. You want to avoid falling into that trap. Instead, remain calm and collected. Let your observations and your intuition guide you quietly. The goal is to gather information, not to fight a battle you're not ready to win. Keep your focus on the facts, not on fears or suspicions. This means documenting what you see, what you hear, and how things change over time. Patterns are far more telling than isolated moments. Someone who cheats rarely can keep all their lies straight indefinitely. They slip up, contradict themselves, or show shifts in behavior that are difficult to fake consistently. You becoming the calm observer in this process is what will allow you to see through the facade. Remember, your worth is not determined by their actions. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. What matters most is your self-respect and self-awareness. When you hold on to your dignity, you refuse to be dragged into chaos. You refuse to settle for half-truths or excuses. You stand for yourself, knowing that your clarity is your power. That's a lesson so many forget when caught up in the pain of betrayal. When you keep calm, you also keep control. And control doesn't mean manipulation or coldness. It means you maintain your emotional balance, you think clearly, and you protect yourself from being overwhelmed. It allows you to make decisions from a place of strength, not vulnerability. And those decisions will ultimately serve your best interest. Whether that means working through the relationship, or walking away with your head held high. It's also crucial to remember that closure is for you, not for them. You don't need a confession or an apology to heal or move forward. Sometimes, the truth arrives in silence, in actions, or in the subtle unraveling of a relationship. Your job is not to force the truth out, it's to recognize it when it appears, and to respond in a way that honors your value. Self-respect is the foundation of that response. In the moments of uncertainty, focus on protecting yourself emotionally and mentally. That means setting boundaries, even if they're invisible at first. Protect your energy, protect your heart. You don't have to explain your boundaries or justify your feelings. You owe no one that. Protecting yourself is a quiet but powerful act of self-love. And here's something many don't realize. The truth may come from places you least expect. It might be a subtle change in their routine, a text you catch by accident, or even just the way their energy shifts when you walk into the room. You don't have to chase these clues aggressively. They often present themselves naturally when you're paying close attention. Your role is to stay present, aware, and grounded enough to notice them. The process of uncovering truth is rarely easy or neat. It often involves uncomfortable emotions, moments of doubt, and times when you feel alone in your suspicion. But it is within that discomfort that your strength grows. Every time you choose composure over chaos, observation over accusation, and dignity over desperation, you reclaim a part of yourself. No matter what you discover, you deserve to be treated with honesty and respect. And if that's not what you receive, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their character. You cannot control others' choices, but you can control how you respond. That is the most powerful position you can take. As you walk this path, remind yourself that self-respect is your shield and your compass. It will guide you through uncertainty, protect you from emotional harm, and help you make decisions that honor who you are. You are not defined by another's betrayal. You are defined by how you hold yourself through it. Stay calm, stay smart, and most importantly, stay true to yourself. The truth will come, and when it does, you will be ready. Your peace, your dignity, and your future are worth every step of the journey.